What's going on, my peoples? You are tuned back in to Blackout Radio with the Dunn boys. We just building today, man. No topics, just unscripted truth. You know, that's what Lexington is missing. So this is what we gonna do: is we gonna go upside your head with that knowledge. Well, it's really information. It's only knowledge if you decide to do something with this information that we giving to you. So, without further ado, Corey, man, let's go into this gentrification, man. It's a major topic. A lot of people don't know what it's about. People hear it. I feel like we definitely put gentrification on the map for Lexington and let people understand what it is. But now folks need to understand on a larger scale what it's all about. So we're about to dissect it up for you so y'all understand why things are going on in Lexington the way they're going.
All right, well, first of all, you got to understand the reason that gentrification is going on. All right, gentrification takes place due to an agenda known as Agenda 21, People Memorandum 200. Basically, that is a United States governmental policy as well as United Nations policy to prevent the development of the least desirable countries. Well, in the United States is a desirable country. However, the black population is the least desirable citizens of the country. So what they want to do is maintain control. They want to maintain order within the United States, and they want to make sure that the United States stays a country that is controlled by the white supremacists. With that being said, black people pose a threat. So what they do is they put us in certain areas, such as the projects that started years ago. Then they tear down the projects. Well, they tear down the projects, you have black communities, and on a local level, you have Mayor Jim Gray, who wants to turn Lexington, Kentucky into the entertainment capital of the state. So with that being said, what does he do? You have the urban service boundaries, as you mentioned. You can't invade on the horse farms because horses are more valuable than people in this state. That's the cash crop outside of marijuana and tobacco. You have horses. That's what we're known for. So what they do is they say, well, we can't go out and impede on the horse land because white people will fight for it. So what do? Let's look inside. We want to build up downtown, and we want to have the people living closer to downtown. So what better way than invade the downtown communities, which just so happen to be the black communities? So what they do is they begin to purchase land in the black community, like North Limestone, like Jefferson Street, like Rand Avenue, like down on West 6 and everything in between. So they start looking at certain areas that they want for themselves, that they want to develop for businesses. At the same time, they buying up houses, they're remodeling them, they're fixing them up. People are buying them and flipping them and selling them to the young liberals, the young hipsters. What that does is it forces the original residents, who happen to be black, out of the community. Those that they can't buy out, they force out. So what you do when you have an increase in white people, you increase the police. You use the violence as a means of saying, hey, well, this area is violent, so we need to clean it up. That way the rest of the citizens around the city say, hey, they're doing a good job by gentrifying it. And the government, as well as the media, paint a picture of the inner city as Iraq somewhere, as a war-torn country, as a war zone that needs the help of white saviors to come in and clean it up. So what do? They clean it up, so to speak. But they don't actually clean it up. All they do is displace the crime in other areas. And they actually create more crime through the act of gentrification. So those that they can't buy out, they're either forced out by different means, such as taking over and making their culture something that is no longer acceptable. So then you have people like Al's Bar playing all this loud rock music, and the residents don't want to hear it, so they move away and go somewhere where they feel more comfortable. At the same time, you have people like the police officers that are coming to protect the white families who are moving into the neighborhood, which makes it harder for people who, historically speaking, have only earned half what whites make anyway. In the East End area, for instance, it's less than $15,000 a year. So most people supplement their income through the drug trade and other crimes, which breeds violence. Well, when you start gentrifying the neighborhoods and the police patrol certain areas more heavily to protect the white people to make sure that they're safe, or the middle income people who moving into the community, they want to make sure they're safe, well, the low income people's areas get smaller and smaller and smaller. So then you have people who would generally not be within close proximity to each other living on top of each other. So now you create turf wars within the drug game. You create the need for a militarized police force. So then the militarized police force is justified because there's violence and crime, and that those rates rise as the gentrification comes in. So the people who were historically in this neighborhood living in peace are now going to war because they are fighting over resources. That is a psychological issue. If I love you as my brother, I won't do anything to you. But if I feel like the only way I can eat is at your expense, then hey, I will take you out. So that's part of the problem that we are facing in the black community, and it is being bred, it is being created, and it is being controlled largely by the government, the media, the developers, and what have you.
Hey man, that's real deep. You said a mouthful right there. One thing that our peoples don't realize when we talking about colonizing the community, urban development, gentrification, there's Section 8. And I know people need Section 8. But one of the words that I spoke on earlier, and I'm going to keep going back to these definitions, is steering committee. And I'm not going to go into steering committee, I'm going to go into steering. Now, it is known that the inner city area is very profitable because of the urban service boundary. It's a belt around the inner city. And instead of building outward, they're going to go into high populated inner city areas. They're going to start land banking. You might say, what is land banking? You are going to purchase land for pennies on the dollar and make an excessive amount of money off of that land. For instance, new developers are coming into a community such as houses on Rand. You can purchase a house for $30,000, rehab it, and now that house is selling for $250,000. Now, if you in the streets and you know what the term flip means, that's one hell of a flip. But another thing, getting back to this steering, one of the best ways for our people to get Section 8 is how? I'm gonna tell you, go to Nicholasville. You can go to Nicholasville and get Section 8 faster. So what is that doing? It is steering you not only out of the inner city, it's steering you into a totally different city. They're not putting you on the outskirts of the suburban areas. They putting you in Nicholasville.
And Paris.
So people, y'all gotta wake up. You really gotta wake up, because what the city is doing, I mean, they've been doing this for years. They've been doing it for years, and the things that they're talking about as far as the urban service boundary, they said if we build into the farmland, it will have a significant impact on the quality of life. On the quality of life for who? Our poor folks? The farmers that are actually running the country? Listen, folks, I ran for city council. I don't know if y'all remember, but I ran for city council in 2012. The people that were making decisions on the local level were not the local politicians. It was the state politicians who were being funded by the horse industry. Those are the individuals that were calling the meetings. So y'all look at the little forums that y'all went to in the neighborhood association meetings. Nah, those weren't the forums. The real forums was when you go downtown to a cocktail party, everybody's drunk, and you see men kissing men in the mouth. You see men kissing council members in the mouth and candidates in the mouth. And I'm looking at my peoples in there like, is this what this is all about? I thought I was in a time warp or something. I thought it was fake. But this is how business is done in Lexington. So folks that don't know what's really going on, it's deep. And it's not about politics. It's not about the people. It's about money. It's about capitalism. So when you have, like Corey says, white supremacy, you're going to have capitalism. You're going to have oppression. You're going to have poverty. And then you're going to have death. So we at the very bottom. So what are we suffering? We suffering the ultimate fate, which is death. Y'all see it all on the Facebook. All you see is RIPs every other week. And these aren't RIPs, the people we don't know. These are people that we grew up with. And all we can say is RIP on Facebook. We sending prayers up. Man, look, man, all the OGs out there, if y'all listening, it's time to stand up and put in some work. I'm tired of seeing my people saying that they OGs, but are basically bending over and taking whatever people are willing to give to them. Your mamas, your fathers being pushed out and dumped on their heads. Your children not being educated in schools. Your sons being locked up in prison. In prison, I'm talking about your sons, man. If you're not willing to stand up and fight for your children, I'm not talking about paying for an attorney. I'm talking about understanding that your son is a product of you. So y'all warriors, y'all gangsters, it's time to stand up and be just that and be gangster with it and take on your community.
Hey,
and take up for your community.
If I can, please let me build on that, because part of the Agenda 21 is the whole FEMA camp, the militarization of America, whatnot. And you know who plays a very interesting role in that?
Who's that?
There's a group known as the Clergy Response Team. Everybody who knows about religion, organized religion, especially Christianity, knows that the clergy is the preachers. So they are actually being recruited by Homeland Security. When you have ministers, you have preachers, you have reverends, you have pastors, and they will tell you, turn the other cheek. They will tell you, we do not need weapons. They will tell you to look at Romans 13 that speaks about the governments have authority from God, and the only reason they can get authority is if God gives it to them, so we shall obey them. When they start talking that old pacifist language, it's largely because they are being controlled by the government. Now, churches are 504c3s, not 501c4, I believe, and instead of 501c3. They're nonprofit organizations that benefit from certain things. So if they don't play ball with the government, they lose their nonprofit status, which means that the money that they receive will then be taxed at a different rate. They don't want that, so they play ball and they participate. The government is basically forcing and or paying the religious community to rock us to sleep, to teach us not to stand up. Now, we had a couple ministers on the show the past couple shows. I'm not saying that Brother Damon Muhammad is in that group, because his group is listed as a threat to American safety. No, look it up. They are on the list. Now, the Christian pastors, on the other hand, most of them will tell you, oh, because Martin Luther King said this, Martin Luther King said that. Now, I'm not saying that Pastor E is a member of that group. What I am saying is there are 28,000 Christian preachers who have been recruited by the Department of Homeland Security through FEMA to basically tell us, put our guns down, don't stand up. It makes it a lot easier for them to come in and take over our communities. So when they have these militarized police forces that come and do raids left and right, and nobody goes against it, when the police are beating our young black brothers left and right in the East End, the West End, and the other low-income communities, and nobody stands up, they'll grab a cell phone maybe until the police tell them to put it down. This is the reason why, because they know that if you want to reach the black people, we don't trust the government, but we do trust Pastor. And Pastor will be the one that's going to rock us to sleep. So, I mean, what you said is true. You asked why we ain't standing up, largely because the preachers are telling us not to. What you think about that?
Man, I think it's time for us to take a break, because it's going to take a way longer than 45 seconds for me to dig into that right there. So stay tuned. Sit tight. We'll be right back with Blackout Radio.
Yes, sir.